But before we do that, let me just go ahead and welcome everyone to the Newsroom at Home. I am Charnel Ross, as Chuck already stated, and I'm the marketing manager here at Bay Area News Group. I do want to remind you that if any of you guys have questions, to go ahead and put them in the Q&A feature found in your Zoom toolbar. We'll definitely try and get all the questions answered throughout and at the end of the conversation. And if you have any other comments, please feel free to use the chat feature. We definitely love to hear from you. So let's jump right back into our main conversation. I'm going to introduce our moderator for the hour, Bay Area News Group's TV critic and columnist, Chuck Barney. Hi, Chuck.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I was just going to say, as a guy who writes about television, one of the big parts of the job is to stay on top of shows that are hot, shows, new programming, shows that are in the news, and usually Jeopardy is not part of that. I mean, this is a show that was created by Merv Griffin in the 1960s. And so that hasn't been, on the radar that much. But over the last year, Jeopardy has been one of the biggest TV stories around, starting with the death of Alex Trebek, beloved host. And then the raging controversy over who should replace him. And now with a dominant champion in Matt Amodio. So Jeopardy is in the news, and we're lucky to have these panelists here. We're going to have them introduce themselves. I guess we'll start with Yoshi. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Yoshi. I am an executive assistant and mental health advocate at a nonprofit, which provides mental health peer support services in San Mateo County. I have been a Jeopardy fan since the 60s when Art Fleming was the host. I've always had almost a fatalistic sense of certainty that I would be on the show sooner or later. I'm a lifelong artist. I was a calligraphy teacher for many years. I'm also a crossword puzzle competitor, and I have many interests. I'm an insatiable reader. Some people might call me a walking dictionary until they want some information. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's me, Yoshi Hill,
Right. Woman
of many parts.
All right, let's go to Sam Stapleton.
I'm not sure how I can follow that.
I know.
My name's Sam Stapleton. I'm a college counselor in Los Gatos. I'm a lifelong Bay Area resident. Grew up in San Jose and have been here pretty much my whole life. Jeopardy for me is something that I, like so many people, watched, as far back as when I was a kid with my grandparents, and always kind of had an idea that I'd like to try it sometime. I've always loved trivia and things like that, and so I tried for 5 or 6 years to get on the show, and was lucky enough to get on this last year. I am as Chuck will know, a big Giants fan, so I'm very excited for the game tomorrow night. Yeah, I've got 2 young kids that are amazing, and that's really where I'm spending all my time these days, is shuttling to soccer games and softball games and dance recitals. But yeah, I'm happy to be here and glad to talk about Jeopardy.
All right, and then we have Kristen, who, if people don't know, works with us at the Bay Area News Group, and we were all excited when she got on Jeopardy. Kristen, take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Crow. I live in Concord, and I have lived here for about 25 years. If you did see my episode, mine aired in May. I was introduced as a native of Fargo, North Dakota. I did a little research, and it turns out I'm one of only a very small handful from North Dakota who have been introduced as a North Dakotan on the show. So I'm happy to claim that. I, like Chuck and Sam, I'm a very big baseball fan. My allegiance is to the Minnesota Twins, who are resting up until spring training.
There you go. I like that.
Um,
Just like my A's.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I've watched Jeopardy since the revival in the mid 80s. My mom and I, it was appointment watching for us until I graduated from high school in 1993. I've watched pretty much every night since the Ken Jennings streak. My daughter was born in the middle of it, and my goodness, that Ken Jennings streak got me through a lot of fussy baby moments.
Wow, that's awesome.
She's 17 now and pretty much uninterested.
Okay, that's cool. Well, obviously, we're going to talk about their experiences, how they got on the show, their behind the scene scoops and all that stuff, but we cannot talk Jeopardy without talking about Matt Amodio. Last I saw, he had won 36 straight games. His earnings are over $1 million, 1.4 million. This guy is a robot, like maybe an outer space alien. He's just demolishing people. And I want to know what you guys think of him. Like I said earlier, we have people in the office that do not like him. It's just like, please let him lose and stuff. They don't like the way he answers. They don't like the way, it's just, anyway, what do you guys think of him? Kristen, go ahead.
Oh, I think he's great. I hope he wins 76 games to beat Ken's record. I just think he's marvelous. He's very humble and down to earth, and the kind of champion I hope if I had gotten that far that I would be.
Yeah.
But his base of knowledge is incredible, and I just I hope he goes as far as he can.
That's awesome. All right, how about you, Yoshi?
Oh, I think he's great. And actually, I think that the controversy over love him or hate him is good for the show.
Right.
Because more people are watching. And I think there are a lot of more Matt lovers than Matt haters. And I think that he may have an eidetic, or what's sometimes called a photographic memory, because if you notice, once he buzzes in, and of course he says the what's, which is his general intro, it's like he's pulling a card out of his memory banks and then double checking the answer before he says it out loud. And I think that annoys a lot of people, but hey, I find it fascinating to mind at work.
You agree, Sam?
I just think it's so impressive. I mean, I saw a thing where he basically, one of the reasons he's fast to the buzzer is because I think he's trying to buzz in on every question. I think he said, there are places where it's like, I buzz in and I sort of figure by the time I have to answer, I'm going to figure out the response.
Right.
Which is, most people would say, like, do I want to buzz in here or not? And I think that's a pretty, just that alone is impressive. But I think he's great. I'm mostly just grateful I wasn't on when he was on, because
right.
It would be very demoralizing to walk into the studio and say, oh, I'm up against the guy who's won 30 games.
The buzzsaw.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I agree with what most of you are saying, but here's one thing that I have a problem with, and it has nothing to do with his way of answering or anything. It's as a TV critic watching the show, I'm starting to wonder, is this good TV? He's usually way ahead by the first commercial. It's like watching a human demolition derby. He's just blowing people away, and I'm like rooting for the challengers. Come on, let's get a few questions in here. But so how do you guys feel about that? I mean, if this goes on and he's blowing people away, I mean, is it going to be fun watching that? Like after 50? What do you think, Sam?
Well, I think the fact that he's not even halfway to Ken Jennings,
right?
And Ken Jennings is like arguably the reason Jeopardy is still on the air. The streak he went on drew so much attention to the show, and got so. Yeah, I mean, on any given night, would it be fun to have a competitive game? Yeah, but I think it's equally impressive to watch someone who's as good as Matt. And I think that I think there's what he's doing is so hard to do that it's just you got to appreciate it. I mean,
right.
It's sort of thinking about the back to a baseball analogy, but there was when the Yankees were great for 10 years in a row. Did that get a little, some people I'm sure it's like, I like to see someone else win, but God, it was impressive to watch, so no, I don't think it's bad for the show at all. In fact, I think it's done a great job of taking attention away from the whole guest host thing and all that stuff, and getting back to the playing of the game, which I think is a really welcome change.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And getting back to the sports analogy, now it's like, it's like when you were watching Muhammad Ali, oh, I want to see him take on so-and-so. Now it's like, how would this guy do against Ken Jennings? I want another GOAT tournament.
Yeah. What do you think? On stage together when Ken takes over the hosting job again.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yoshi, who do you want to see him go up against? You want to see another GOAT tournament?
I would. I'd love to see him go up against Holzhauer.
Yes.
But as far as it being good TV, I would have to say for Jeopardy fans like me, where I watch because I am competing myself against the game as part of the audience, that's different from someone who's watching it for entertainment. So for me, it's fascinating. I love it. It's good TV. For someone who's, just wants to be entertained, hey, go watch Wheel of Fortune. That's what I have to say.
I hate that show. No, it's like
my husband knows that he has to change the channel before the Wheel of Fortune theme song comes on, or I'll be very cranky.
That's great. All right, Kristen, who would you like to see Mr. Amodio go against?
Oh my gosh, it would be insanely fun to watch him go against Ken and against James. And I'm still a fan of Brad Rutter from back in the day.
Yeah.
Any of these guys, I just think it would be great to watch him. His gameplay reminds me a little bit of Alex Jacob. I don't know if you remember him. He's a contestant from 4 or 5 years back who I think is a poker player, and the slow response reminds me a lot of Alex. And he was a champ that I really enjoyed watching as well.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. So let's get into you guys. I want to know how and when you decided to go on the show, and what made you, want to try this out. We'll start with Yoshi here.
Well, I've been a fan of Jeopardy since the 1960s when Art Fleming was the host. And then when the show was revived in syndication with Alex Trebek, I was just hooked, watched just about every show. And along the way, because I kept answering the responses along with the contestants, I just had this light bulb over my head. I think I could do that. So starting in 2010, I started taking the online test. I knew that I was getting good scores on the test, although they never tell you how you did. And then when I was called back for live auditions in 2013 and 2016, I thought, well, maybe I have a chance, because I was then in the contestant pool, but I never got the call. But then I took the test again in January of last year, and again, knew I aced it, but then COVID happened. I forgot all about it. And then I got the call in August asking me if I could be on the show. And of course I said, yes. So yeah, the hard part one hard part for me, because everyone in my circle knows that I'm a big Jeopardy nut, is that I had to not tell anybody. So only my husband and daughter and my boss and one other friend at work knew that I was going to be on the show. So keeping that on a secret, that was hard. But yeah, I was persistent on continuing to take that online test until I got to the audition phase.
I forgot all about that secrecy part. I remember getting mad when Kristen told us she was going to be on Jeopardy like 2 days from now. It's like, what? Come on, you taped that a long time ago and you couldn't tell us?
Only when you have the air date can you reveal it to the public. Yeah.
All right, Kristen, what made you decide to go on Jeopardy?
It was my grandma. She planted the seeds in my head when I was about 16. She thought, you can do this. And, when I was convinced she was teasing me, and she's like, no, I'm not really, you need to do this. And when they started having the online tests 20 years ago or so, I started getting serious about it. I would say mid 2000s, 2005, 2006. Yoshi, I had 3 in-person interviews. I walked in going, oh my gosh, there's not a chance in the world I could do this, because everybody there had these very prestigious jobs. You know, there's professors and doctors and lawyers. And I thought, there's no way on earth I can compete with this. But, you know, everybody was so kind. And I just thought these people were so fun, and they made it, you know, they didn't make me feel like I was a dummy. You know, here I was.
Well, you're not.
You know, so you take a test when you go to the audition, and here's where I felt like I stood a chance. So there was Greek mythology is a terrible category for me, and I had no idea what the Greek mythology question is. So I asked the attorney sitting next to me, what was the answer? And he's like, well, obviously it was blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, what was the answer to this one? It was a pop culture question, and it was about the movie Avatar that had just come out. And I thought everybody in the world had seen Avatar. And I thought, well, maybe this is a real possibility. It took a bit, but, you know, thank goodness I got the call.
All right, on. Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of people who have made it onto the show. I mean, I've watched Jeopardy since I was a kid. And growing up, you know, it was a lot of, you know, I was always good at trivia games and stuff like that. And people would always, oh, you should go on Jeopardy. You should go on Jeopardy. And it was probably around 2012 or 13 that I started the process. I think for people to understand, so the way it works is you take an online test, and if you pass that test, you get put into a pool where then your name gets drawn randomly to go to the next stage. And if you get drawn there, then you do an in-person test, or when I did it, it was a Zoom test, but you do another test to kind of double check your knowledge, and then you have an audition. So there's like a multi-month process to get going. I took the online test probably 6 or 7 times, I think, you know, probably 2013-ish. I was fortunate that the first time, you know, and I think I did pretty well every time I took it, but I was fortunate the first time that I got the call to get to the audition process or the next step, I only had to do that once. So I didn't have the, you know, 3 different auditions or things like that. I got in on the first pass. So hearing the stories from people who've done it multiple times, I feel very fortunate in that way. But yeah, it was awesome. It was a great experience.
Right on. We have a few questions from the audience, and one I'm very interested in hearing your answer from Jim Sparaco. Hope I didn't mispronounce that. He asks, do Matt or other contestants on long winning streaks have an advantage since they have experience using the buzzer? And they've been around, they no longer have that tension of being in front of the camera. Do you guys think he has any advantage?
I think that there are definite advantages to having been on for a while, in the sense of being comfortable and things like that, and getting used to the process. But I think that one of the things that makes it really hard to go on a long streak is the fatigue factor, because you're taping 5 games in a single day. Then you got to, for someone like Matt, then he's got to turn around and get up the next morning and do 5 more. And I think that's really challenging. So even if you're comfortable, you just get tired, and you get, you know, that kind of stuff. And then the thing I think for him that's really impressive is he's done this with how many different hosts now? 7, 6 or 7 different hosts, you know. And so one of the things that prior to the guest host era that a lot of contestants would prep for with the buzzer and with all this stuff was getting used to Alex Trebek's cadence and trying to get the timing down. And you just can't do that with the guest hosts because they're all different. And so the fact that he's gotten into a rhythm with all those people, I think his advantages are not just getting
Right.
comfortable. I guess he's just killing it.
Right. We've got another question, and I'm curious about this one myself. Charlene Maxwell wonders what the heck goes on during commercials. Yoshi, you want to
Well,
through that one?
first of all, that's when contestants get to take a sip of water.
Yeah.
But also during commercial breaks, that's when mistakes are corrected. For example, I was surprised that Alex Trebek, with his impeccable enunciation, re-recorded several responses or reading a question or remarks to get it like more impeccable. And I think those are called pickups. And then also during the commercial breaks, a lot of times is when the judges make their decisions on questions that may have had a dubious answer or mispronunciation or something like that. And also that's when some corrections are also refilmed with the contestant on screen, and that was done for me.
Okay. And here's one for you, Yoshi, too, from Susan Campbell. She wants to know how the women of the Jeopardy Facebook group responded to the whole host situation, the controversy.
Actually, there are other Jeopardy Facebook groups that discuss it in much more vehement detail, and not so much on the women of Jeopardy. That's more of a personal kind of a space.
Ah, okay. All right. And we'll give this one to Kristen. Eileen Keating wants to know, and I've wondered this myself, are any of the questions designed to meet the skills of the contestants? Like if they know you're into Bible, will you have some Bible questions? Like Sam's into sports, will there be sports questions that night?
No, everything is completely blindly done. So we were picked for our games out of a hat. So I didn't know until I got there that they picked my name for the Friday game. So I had no idea what the categories were going to be. Nobody does. It's all to make sure everything's on the up and up, because if any of you have seen the movie Quiz Show from, oh goodness, the 90s, everything is done to make sure there is no monkey business going on.
Right, absolutely. And some people are asking about Mike Richards, who brought a little bit of a mud to the Jeopardy situation. I think, Sam, weren't you a contestant with Mike?
I was. So I won't, my first game was Ken Jennings's last game as a guest host, and then my second and third games were Mike Richards' first two when he was doing just the filling in thing, not when he was named as a permanent host, which didn't turn out to be so permanent. But yes, yeah, no, I was there the day that he came on set and basically was, I'm filling in, I'm just here to help out, and we have and then all of a sudden it turned out, oh, whoa, he was actually a candidate all along, which was
Exactly.
an interesting development in my take. But yeah, no, the Mike Richards thing. There are many layers to it, and none of them are good. If that makes sense. I think the fact that it was really disappointing as a contestant to be there that day, the first pass of taping, and to have him say publicly, which he said to everybody, there was a scheduling issue, I'm stepping in, this is just a temporary thing, we're going to make the best of it. And the day itself was actually, like, I came away from it feeling like, wow, what a nice guy. And he stepped in, and he actually did, on a taping day, you actually do a rehearsal before you start taping real shows. And usually it's one of the Clue crew that runs that, like Jimmy McGuire. And that's who Jimmy did it when I was with Ken. But the day that Mike Richards was there, he did the rehearsal as well. And the whole idea was like, he's really had to step in at the last minute, and we keep him, and we got to get him ready and all that kind of stuff. And it was sort of this, we're all in this together kind of thing. And then to kind of find out after the fact that all of that was just kind of made up, that he was hanging for the job the whole time, and you know, and setting all of it up to, I don't know, putting his thumb on the scale was really, you know, I was personally offended because I was literally lied to, you know, on to my face. And then you add all the other things that were, you know, all the things that came out about his time on The Price is Right and his podcast and all that stuff. And it was just like, oh God, you know, and so it was, yeah, it was really an unhappy chapter.
Yes.
This whole thing, but
yeah, very shady. I remember writing a column when he when they hired him. It's like, oh my God, come on. You had a chance.
And I was disappointed by it too, because, you know, because I was on the shows where he started, and there were plenty of people that I knew who weren't necessarily, they were more casual Jeopardy fans. They're like, oh, he's great, I love him. And I was like, yeah, I mean, he's good for a guest host, sure. But, you know, and I went out and was like, no, he's just filling in and all stuff. And then none of that was really true. And so it was disappointing.
Yeah, we
glad that they got past that. Hopefully.
Yeah, we ran 2 reader polls in our publications, and he never finished. I don't think he ever finished in the top 5. And so it was stunning to see them make that choice when they had a chance to do something really special, you know, and be diverse, do something different, and they picked the producer. People are asking, Bonnie Home wants to know how many games you played and when. Yoshi.
I played 3 games. I won the first 2 games, and then the last game I lost on the final Jeopardy question when I made a dumb bet and screwed the pooch. So yeah, I was on 3 games, 1-2.
Okay, Sam.
Well, first off, Yoshi, also to point out, you were on the last 3 games for Alex Trebek.
That is
you were there.
Yeah.
I was also on 3 games. I won 2. I was on for the last game of Ken Jennings's run as the guest host, which aired in February, and then the first 2 games of Mike Richards' run, so late February this last year. I also lost on Final Jeopardy on a question that I knew the answer to and just couldn't pull it in time, and have been kicking myself for 9 months now. So yeah.
Kristen, do you want to say how many games you were on?
Sure, I'll say I was on 1 game. My game was in May. My host was Bill Whitaker from 60 Minutes. I thought he was a great host, actually. I conversely am not kicking myself over Final Jeopardy because that was my one category I was hoping to get. It was World Capitals. Unfortunately, the champion had a runaway game, so there was no way I could have caught her. And I'm kicking myself because I did not ring in on the last question that I sort of knew, and I would have gotten it right, and I would have beat her in Final Jeopardy.
Yeah, we were all at home. Come on, Kristen, come on.
I think we all have those kick me moments.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yoshi, like Sam said, you were there. Of course, you didn't know it at the time. You were there for Alex's last show. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, when I got called to come to Culver City, I actually had 1 date, and then we had to move it to a second date. And filming had been on hiatus. We later just found out that it was due to Alex Trebek's health. He had abdominal surgery. So on the first day of filming, I was in the audience for the first 2 games. And so I was able to observe him walk out on stage, a little bit bent over, walking very slowly, like the old man that, you know, was 80 years old. And I thought, my immediate impression was that man is in pain. And, you know, clearly with the surgery, he probably was. And, but then as soon as the lights came on, boom, he was instantly the man that you saw on TV, and his charisma just filled the room. And then when I was a contestant, the first time that he said my name, Yoshi Hill from Como, California, out loud, that was mind-blowing for me. It was an amazing moment. And even though there's a distance between the host and the contestants that's enforced like by law, and you don't really get to converse with the host, during the interviews that happened during that commercial break, when he was standing in front of my podium, of course, 6 feet away, the closest I ever got to the man, his eye contact was so intense, and he made you feel like you were the most important and fascinating person in the room, a gift of a great interviewer. And I can't even imagine the energy that it must have taken for him in his state of health to do that with every single contestant. He brought his A game through the entire 3 games where I was a contestant. And yeah, it was a bittersweet honor to be on his last shows. And of course, I didn't know at the time though they would be on his last shows, but now I'm a footnote in television history.
Yeah. What, he died like 8 days later or
Something like that, yeah.
yeah. Wow.
I was in shock because he had looked so good, even close
Right.
up. Yeah.
Wow. Todd Soderbergh wants to know, and a couple of people want to go behind the scenes. What surprised you the most about your Jeopardy experience? You had to walk in expecting certain things, but what kind of caught you by surprise? Kristen, we'll start with you.
The buzzer was the big thing that caught me by surprise. I thought I had this down and I did not. I learned very quickly, the contestant coordinators are wonderful people, and there's not enough kind things in the world to say about them. But they told me at the first commercial break, they said, "You're ringing in half a second too fast. You've got to slow down."
Wow.
So I did. That was the big thing that hurt me in my game, was I couldn't quite get the timing of the buzzer down.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize, I had no idea that if you answer too quickly, you're blocked out, right?
Right, for half a second. And by
Wow.
that time, the other 2 contestants I competed against certainly knew the answers that I knew.
Wow.
So I was out of luck.
What surprised you, Sam?
I think I was surprised by the whole day was surprising, in a way, because it was I think what surprised me was this. On the one hand, it took a very long time to tape 5 shows, like because you tape entire week's worth of shows in a day. We showed up at 7 o'clock in the morning. We had a rehearsal at about 9:30. We started taping at around 11. We got 2 shows in before lunch, 3 more after lunch. Like, it's a long day. I was out by 6 o'clock, right? And so I was there for 11 hours to do a taping. The first day I was there, I was on the Friday show, so I literally didn't, I sat there from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. not on a show at all. But on the one hand, it's also long, and then the actual taping of, like, when you're up there, it goes so fast, because it's not really that different in terms of the amount of time you're there. It's not that different than the runtime of the show. I mean, there's in the commercial breaks, there's, I think Yoshi alluded to this earlier, where there's like pickups and they do some retaping and they do some things like that, or the judges do stuff, but that's really still only that, like, 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, there were some instances where it went a little longer than that, but I remember standing up there on my first game, and we get to the first commercial break, and I'm like, wait, we're already at the break, like that's. I think that's I think that was really surprising to find, like, that for as long as all the things I'd heard about how long the day is, the actual thing going by so quickly was a big piece.
Yoshi, what surprised you?
Well, I think one of the big things that surprised me was the camaraderie and the warmth of all of my fellow contestants. And the first filming day that I was there, the returning champion was Braden Smith, a young man who is a
Oh my God,
genius. And he set the tone for the conversation in the green room. what a warm, engaging, humble guy. And he was a lot more interested in learning about you than talking about himself and being a brainiac and a winner. And he was absolutely not cocky. And so that really set the tone for the next 2 days, as far as I'm concerned. And so that was a very different atmosphere than the vibe that I got at live auditions that I participated in, which are extremely competitive and kind of grim. And this was a joyful experience as far as the camaraderie went. And that was a big plus for me. I loved that.
Yeah, see, I've watched too much of Simon Cowell. I guess everyone was going to be backstabbing each other. Headlocks. No, no, everyone's friendly. A couple of readers have, a couple of our audience members, I should say, have talked about, and people who are new to Jeopardy probably don't know this, they used to have a limit on how long you can go until Ken Jennings and won 70 plus games and stuff. You want to see the limit imposed? I don't think you three do, but I guess you love Matt. And but some people are saying they want to go back to the limit days.
I think, I mean, no, I don't, I wouldn't want to. I think it's more fun to know, because on the fifth day, then you kind of, you know, it is what it is. The reality though is, if you look at the numbers, I mean, there aren't that many people who get past 5 days, you know, and to get there, it's really hard to do. And so I think having that opportunity is impressive. I mean, we're in a time now where you've got a Matt Amodio winning 30 games, but I mean, there's only 4 people in the history of the show that have won more than 20 games. You know, and that's so it's, I think that this level, you see it so rarely that there's no reason to put a cap on it.
Okay. One of our viewers, Robin Miller, wants to know, what do you think of the current host? Ma'am, do you think she should get the job? Yoshi?
I'm lukewarm, because I think that there are better hosts. However, I must say, I started out absolutely not being a fan. I think that she has toned down her condescension. She is putting a lot more of a focus on the contestants and making the game run smoothly. And I think she's really grown in the job. I think she has improved, but she would not be my first choice for permanent host.
Oh, wow. Yoshi, you have a fan here too. She wants to know if you would want to be the host.
No.
She wants to see a female host, I think. But yeah, that's cool. And we have more questions about the buzzer. Someone wants to know, how do you know exactly when to buzz in? The very last syllable of a clue, or what? How do you time that?
Well, actually, the sound at the end of the question, of the sound of the host voice, is not what you calibrate your buzz into. You calibrate your buzz in to when the lights appear on the side of the screen that is on stage that you can't see on TV.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of judge, and I think the rhythm is probably different for every host, because someone backstage is activating the lights and they have their own rhythm with the host voice.
Wow. Kristen?
Yeah, that was the thing.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, that was the thing that was really fascinating about it, is that it is a light, you know, so it's like when your buzzer gets active like it's all linked together. So your buzzer activates at the instant that those lights go on. So how quickly you can do it after those lights, but it's all activated manually by somebody who's listening to the host read the question.
Oh.
And when they've judged that the question is done being read, they activate the whole system. And so part of it is getting in the rhythm with the host, but part of it is getting,
right,
not just getting in the rhythm with those, but getting in the same rhythm as the the producer who's activating stuff. And that's where the challenge is. And so the people who can, there's a lot of different techniques. I mean, there's people who have written books about this stuff. I think it's called Secrets of the Buzzer. There's a book. And some people will say, key in on the host's name. Some people will have a technique of the lights. I mean, there's a million different ways to do it. But yeah, it's fascinating.
That's cool. when Matt first started his streak, my wife and I would sit there in front of the TV and say, stop giving him geography questions. He knows geography too well. Stop giving him baseball questions. He knows baseball. But now it's becoming apparent that he knows just about everything. And John George wants to know, can you share your thoughts on how you feel Matt amassed this amazing breadth of knowledge? I know you're not friends with Matt, but geez, how did he, Kristen, what do you think of that?
Gosh, if anything, I am incredibly jealous because I can't find a weak spot of his. I certainly went in knowing mine, saying, please no Greek mythology, please no opera.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think his James and Ken had the same thing. That I don't think there's a weak spot there.
I know. It's just amazing. Although I do remember a night, and I was very proud of myself because there was a category on Muhammad Ali, and he blew a couple of those that I knew. So take that, Matt.
I did see, he said over the hiatus that he thought his weak spot was pop culture. He spent summer TMZ, and I just thought that's a first thing I've ever heard from Jeopardy contestants, spending their time studying TMZ.
We have a viewer, Anne Marie, who has an idea. She says that she read recently where he reads Wikipedia every night. That's good bedtime reading. Wikipedia. Wow.
It's possible. I used to read the dictionary for fun.
Did you really? Wow. Did you get through it okay?
No, it was one of those unabridged ones.
So I want to know, like, how many times you tried to get on Jeopardy? Do you even remember how many, Kristen?
I did 4 auditions in total.
And how many online times did you do that?
Oh gosh, probably a dozen online tests. I know there was 3 or 4 years ago, before the pandemic, Jeopardy and I had a really hard time trying to set up another audition time, but I would say it was a dozen tests.
Okay. Sam?
I probably took the online tests 6 times, and then I got through the, once I got through that first process once. But I mean, just to, like, the numbers are basically, like, when we did our audition, when I got to the audition level, we were told that the online test, 150,000 people had taken the online test for that year, and that by the time you'd gotten down to the audition, they were auditioning 2,000 people and they would choose 400 out of those 2,000. And so that's when we talk about having to take the test a whole bunch of times and audition a whole bunch of times, that's where the numbers come from. I mean, that's why you have to do that, is because those numbers are so big.
Yoshi, how about you?
Well, starting in 2010, I was taking the online test whenever possible. And I had in-person auditions in 2013 and 2016. And on both of those occasions, I was told that I was now in the contestant pool, and therefore I would either get the call or I wouldn't. But in any case, I could not take the test again for 18 months. So I didn't take it yearly, but I always took it as soon as I could. And it wasn't until after the January 2010 online test, and then COVID happened, and I got the call in August to do the filming in October. And the show dates were January 6, 7, and 8 for me. Yeah.
Okay, here's a behind the scenes question. Georgina Van Horn wants to know, where do you see your money totals? How do you keep that? How do you keep track of that? Because we see the money totals in front of you on your little podium there, but where do you see it?
So on the stage, when you stand on the stage, you've got your podium. I don't think you can see your money right in front of you, but you've got the big board and the blue lights that go around it when you light up. right to the left of that is it's not, I don't know if it's a monitor, but you can see the 3 money totals, and they're in order of who you are. So a lot of times if you're watching the show and you'll see, like, especially with a daily double, and they'll look up off to the side, it's because they're looking at where everybody stands and trying to calculate what their bet is. So it's available just off to the left of the game board.
Okay. And here's one that interests me, especially since Matt has been on a big winning streak. I keep thinking, what, the personal story part. Like, what's he gonna say tonight? So Todd wants to know when they ask these things and how they get those personal stories out of you. Go ahead, Sam. I remember you telling me that you went too long on one of yours.
Oh yeah. So the way the process starts is once you get the call that Yoshi's talking about, you get this big long questionnaire that you have to fill out, and I think there's like 40 questions on it. You have to tell them all these different things about your life, and then it was about a week before I went down to tape that I got an email from the contestant coordinator that's like, here's the 5 stories that we think we want to put on a card that we could draw from for that tape day, and are you okay with that? And so I let them know, and then so on the day, the host actually has, well, most of the hosts have like a physical card. Some of them use a cue card behind the but there's any one of 5 questions the contestant coordinators would tell us, okay, this is the one that we've highlighted. I know Alex Trebek was sort of famous for not always going with the one that the producers suggested.
Oh, wow.
But so you could get thrown off guard, but you had a sense of it was going to be one of these 5 little factoids that they were going to ask about. And then they just bring up the question and they tell don't go too short, don't go too long, say more than 3 words, but don't tell a short story. Mine was the first time I told my San Francisco Giants story was too long. And so they, at the end of it, stopped it and said, hey, we need to retake that, and that gets back to the stuff that happens off that you don't see. I actually retaped my little anecdote. I think it was 4 times to make it. Well, wow. The second time was still a little too long. The third time I sort of screwed up in the middle, so I stopped, and then the 4th time finally got it right. And then we just moved on with the show from there.
As an A's fan, I thought your story was still too long. Anne Marie Drake wants to know, Docky, not Drake, sorry. Where do the contestants reside while you're down there in Culver City?
You have to pay your own way. Let's just say that up front.
Really?
Oh yeah. So when I went for my filming in October, I stayed at one of the hotels that the contestant wranglers told me had a Sony discount. Had to pay for it myself, plus all meals. And there were not a lot of restaurants open at that time because of the COVID. I did eat a lot of Jack in the Box breakfast that I would buy on the way to the studio so that I have something during the snack break. And that was one of the ways that I prepared for being a contestant, was to make sure I got a good night's sleep and eat breakfast.
Oh.
Yeah, but yeah, all of that is out of pocket.
Wow.
If you're a return contestant, then they will pay for your transportation and lodging.
And that was also kind of a difference for us taping, and because all the procedures and stuff changed during the COVID taping, because my understanding is in prior seasons you absolutely still had to pay your own way, but they strongly encouraged all the contestants to stay at a specific hotel because they would provide shuttle transportation to and from the studio. So everyone would kind of gather in the lobby, ride the shuttle bus to the studio for that day, and then when the taping was over, everyone would ride back, and that's where you hear all the stories of the contestants kind of bonding and going out for a drink afterwards and all that stuff. But for us, they said no shuttle. Here's the hotel. You can make your own reservation or stay wherever you want. Wow. So I knew other contestants who were like, oh yeah, I stayed with my friend who lives here, and I did that, and that was different for us. But historically, they really try to get everyone to stay in the same hotel and take a shuttle to and from the studio on the day of taping.
Okay, we've got a question from Joan Morris, who I know is not a Matt fan.
Hi, Joan.
She does not like the way he answers questions and stuff. And he talks about, how he cuts them off short, and he'll say the category for 16, and he won't say the first names. He's just trying to move. Do you think it makes that big of a difference to get the game moving or whatever?
I'm gonna say yes.
Wow.
I absolutely cringe at home when I see that there are questions up there that don't get answered. So if he can take a shortcut to do that, by all means. Also, when we were there, they had suggested, they say, keep your, when you pick, keep it short. They say, if, don't say the whole category, say a keyword and say the dollar number. Don't throw in the please. Don't say, can I have world capitals for $400, please, Alex? No. They want to give you the money. So they can take the little shortcuts to make sure that you get to all of the answers or questions, however you prefer to call them. I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
I would say, in fact, even in one of the tapings that I was at, there was a contestant who was doing that sort of, I'll take this, please. And at the commercial break, the producers actively said, please stop doing that. Like it wasn't even like a suggestion. It was like, we really, really want you to shorten that up because we want to keep the game moving. So Matt, yeah, I mean, the stuff Matt's doing is stuff that producers like to keep the game moving.
Wow. We have Eric Grant. Actually, this is more of an opinion than a question, and I'll put this to Yoshi since she mentioned Art. How come nobody seems to remember Art Fleming? Everyone talks about Alex. He's from a different era, and he was great.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is just generational, because a lot of people were not of an age where they would have been watching Art Fleming after school in the 1960s. And for people who grew up in a later era and started watching Jeopardy with Alex Trebek, that's the only Jeopardy that they know. But really, Art Fleming was the Jeopardy pioneer, and he elevated the game to a level of keeping to the facts and being very ethical. And actually, when Alex Trebek started as host, he was not the polished pro that you saw at the end of his career. And there were a lot of people who said, oh, who's this Alex Trebek guy? Bring back Art Fleming. We love Art Fleming. Yeah, but I think it's a generational.
Okay.
You might know the answer to this more than I do, but after Alex died, I went down a very serious YouTube rabbit hole of finding old, like, classic concentrations and some of the game shows he hosted from the 70s.
Yeah.
And there's some available on YouTube, but I don't think that there's a lot of Jeopardies from the Art Fleming era available to watch anywhere.
Yeah, you're right. Right. Yeah. No wonder. Exactly. I remember Art. I'm old. Someone wants to know if Lorraine Erfer wants to know, do you think Jeopardy will invite people back who lost to Matt, who got creamed?
The participation prize games, I would love it to happen for the second highest winners to come back as a tournament of almost champions.
Okay. And my man Randy Mack, Kristen knows Randy, wants to know, am I the only one who thinks they have dumbed the questions down somewhat in recent years, or made them more pop culture oriented instead of scholarly over the past several years?
There have always been pop culture questions.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And I don't believe that they have been dumbed down. There's always been an assortment and an assortment of categories also.
As
I think one of the key things is that the writers haven't changed. I mean, they're and one of the really cool things that I didn't know about all of it when I started was that most of the people who work on that show have been there for 20 years, 30 years. One of the contestant coordinators I was with had been there for 10 years, and she was the baby. She talked about still being considered the rookie. And so I think there was some, maybe in this last season when Mike Richards took over as the executive producer after Harry Friedman had been there for so long, there was some thought that maybe the quality of the questions had kind of steered in a certain direction, but definitely not in a long term. I don't think that's the case. I think there's maybe in the last year there might have been a little bit of that, but the writers are the same people. I mean, they've been there for forever.
As a Bruce Springsteen fan, I was very happy to see Springsteen being the answer to Final Jeopardy a few nights ago, and I got it right. Oh, I like this one. Celeste Cologne, getting a little personal here. She wants to know if you three of you would share your IQs or plead the fifth.
I don't actually know mine. I don't know. I would tell you. I have no problem telling you. I would probably be excited to tell you, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I
No
do
way.
not want to
either.
reveal my IQ, and
What?
I'll tell you why. When I have talked about it in the long ago past, it created so much resentment in a lot of people. I just stopped even mentioning it. And most people, when they first meet me, don't realize I'm an intelligent person until they interact with me. It's not something that I talk about.
Oh, I knew right away, Yoshi. I knew right away. I love that question, Celeste. I want to know, this is my question, when do you get the money? Are you still waiting on the check, or do you get it right away? Do you get it when you leave the studio, or what?
I just got my check probably about 6 weeks ago.
And you were on, when did
In
you
May.
record?
I recorded in March and my episode aired in May.
Wow. Same story.
Yeah, I think what they tell you is 60 to 90 days after your last air date. So yeah, my air date, I taped in December and January. My show aired in February, and I think I got my check in May.
Okay.
So yeah, I think they want to keep you honest.
And I'm sorry if I'm butchering any of these names in our audience, but Andrew Radin wants to know, how long does it take between taping shows? Do you guys get a break, or you go right into it? Or go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, so the way the taping day worked is, we got there at about 7. I think we were brought into the studio around 7:30 or so. I think I mentioned this earlier, but our green room was actually the Wheel of Fortune set, which is the building next door. So we sat in the audience of the Wheel of Fortune set, and it was probably I'd say about 2 hours of go through all the routine, the paperwork, all that kind of stuff, get mic'd up, put makeup on. We did a rehearsal where all of the contestants for the whole taping day got a chance to get up on stage and answer some questions and kind of, play a mock game. And then I think we started taping our first episode probably around 11 a.m., maybe 10:30, 11, probably about 11. And then we would have, I won a Monday game. And so basically what it was, all right, you won, whisk you off, go change your clothes and get back on stage. It was probably 15 to 20 minutes between episodes. And so we did the Monday episode, the Tuesday episode. When I was with Ken, we actually got 3 in before lunch, and we took lunch at about 1:30, had an hour break, and then we did 2 more episodes, and I was done by 5. When we taped with Mike, it took a little longer. We got 2 episodes in before lunch, and then we did 3 more, and it took until about 6 o'clock. I heard stories with some of the guest hosts where it went to like 9 o'clock at night. So it's more a matter of how efficient it is.
That was definitely my experience. I was on a Friday episode, and the gap between the games was a little bit longer because they had to do a lot of what Sam was referring to with the pickups. Bill had either tripped over a word or it wasn't as smooth as I'd like. So he spent the time in between the games doing a lot of these pickups. So by my episode taped around 6:30, and I left the studio just around 8.
Okay, wow.
So we had a very long day.
Yeah. Sam brought up the wardrobe. I keep thinking as I watch Matt go every night after night, it's like, man, he's got to buy some new clothes. He just switches out the tie, you know.
There was a, not to interrupt you, there was a thing on Twitter a couple weeks ago that was like, tell me you've been on Jeopardy without telling me you've been on Jeopardy. And one of the responses was, I have a bag full of 4 changes of clothes that I'm never going to use.
Christine White wants to know, are any of you fans of The Chase?
Yes.
Yeah,
Never watched it.
never watched it. Has those Jeopardy champs on there. Sam, you a fan?
It's not the Jeopardy game. That's
Yeah, that's true.
I watched the first season and I've watched a little bit of the second season, so I would say I'm in between Kristen and Yoshi on that one. I actually tried to get on the show, but I had been on Jeopardy too recently.
I determined very quickly that The Chase is not for me. And the reason why is that with Jeopardy, I could see and hear at the same time. And with The Chase, it's mostly you're hearing the questions.
Right,
And I cannot do that.
right. Michael Bennett wants to know, we're back to the buzzer. People just want to know about that buzzer, that damn buzzer. Michael Bennett wants to know, do you guys get a chance to practice with the buzzer beforehand? Get familiar with it?
Everyone gets a rehearsal game.
Oh, really?
When I was a contestant, the rehearsal game, you get to stand at a podium, practice with the buzzer, and Jimmy McGuire, who also would make a great host, by the way, was running the rehearsal game. So you do get to practice a little bit with the timing and the buzzer. Yes.
Okay. Trying to get to more of these questions. Gina Whitney wants to know, how long are the commercial breaks actually? How long do contestants have to prepare for Final Jeopardy? Do you guys have a pen and paper there with you, a calculator? Do you get to have any tools to help you out?
So there's no time limit, although if you really drag it out, they would probably encourage you to go faster. You don't get a calculator, but you get a piece of paper where you can kind of do the math on your wager. So the other thing they give you, so you get the category and then it goes to break, and then they're doing a lot of kind of setting everything up. They have to get the monitor set up so they put the barriers in between the podium or the places where we're standing. And then it's an unlimited time, but it was probably about maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 at most, where you could calculate your wager, you lock in your wager. The other interesting thing is they tell you in advance whether to write down what or who. So they make you write the question in advance so that they make sure that there's no one who ever loses by forgetting to phrase their answer in the form of a question.
All right. We're supposed to be wrapping up pretty soon, but we have a few more questions, so I want to rip through those. Judy asked, and I've wondered about this too. See, this is something that ticks people off about Matt. Last night, Matt's response to what is Adam was, what is Adams? It was a presidential response. He didn't give the first name. There's been 2 presidents that are named Adams, and he always gives the last name, which is in most cases is fine. But in some cases, there's a little, you should know that person. Does that tick you off in any way?
It does. I have had comments to my family about the same thing, that, come on, they need to be more specific.
Mm-hmm.
There was a category, I think it was earlier this week, it was Baseball Hall of Famers by the initials. And they got to just give the last names. And one of the clues was Ricky Henderson. And he just said Henderson. And I was like, there was a Dave Henderson as well. I know
Right.
His initial was an R, but if you give both initials, you should have to give both names.
That's right. That's right. Could have said Randy Henderson. But yeah.
Although I would say that we got coached in the pregame stuff not to give, basically that we specifically got coached by the producers that unless a first name was specifically asked for, the last name was okay, and they encouraged you to just do last names, because if you answered a first name that was wrong, then your response would be wrong. So I get it. I get why you would choose not to give more information than you have to.
Okay. Howard wants to know.
Plus, Dave Henderson was a Hall of Famer. So
That's right. That's right. That's right. A's player, Sam. Howard wants to know who are the question writers? Do they collaborate with each other? Where are they? Where, do you even see them? Are they like some secret cabal? Yoshi?
No, they are a separate crew. And as far as I know, we never see the question writers, although they might be in the audience on the producer's side of the audience. But no, they work totally separately. Yeah.
All right.
And we never.
I do think there's got to be someone. I don't know, but I think there's got to be at least one of them who's there because, like at least in one of my shows, there was a question as to what, like one of the contestants' questions that I think what I said was right, and so they had to go back and research it in real time. And I think that there had to be at least context. Maybe they were just on an earpiece, but they had to go back and understand what was the intent of the question when they wrote it. So they at least while the game is being played, the writers are at least somewhere where they're aware of what's going on.
So wagering is a big part of it, obviously, and someone like Holzhauser was a really gutsy wagerer. Charlene wants to know, did any of you three get a chance at a daily double? And did you make it a true daily double? Sam?
I played 3 games and I think I got 6 of the 9 daily doubles, but I did not do a true daily double at any point. There was one that I would have, but I caught it too early in the game, so that I bet I only had $600 and I bet 1,000. So no, I didn't. That's my one. I would say one thing that I regret is not ever having a chance to say I'll make it a true daily double.
Okay, Kristen?
I got 2 daily doubles. I did go all in on one, and that was the one I got wrong. When I hit the second one, I had the opportunity to go all in again, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't rebuilding from 0 again, so I went just slightly less than true daily double.
Are you, Yoshi?
I believe I did the true daily double thing once, but it was toward the beginning of a game where the maximum was $1,000. Yeah.
Okay, and Kevin Mager wants to know, are the video questions any more difficult to answer or buzz in on than the clues that are written out?
No, same deal with the lights around the screen. You have to calibrate your buzzer to the lights around the screen.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit trickier just because you don't know, like there was one clue that was like, it wasn't video, but it was audio. And so you couldn't really gauge off of a host reading. You had to kind of guess when the producer was going to decide that the song had played long enough. So that makes it a little bit trickier, but yeah.
Okay, well, I could go on all day, but someone wants me to get back to work. Kristen needs to get back to work. So this was awesome. This is like one of my final duties at the Bay Area News Group. And I love listening to you three. And I got this for Sam real quick. Thank you, everyone.
That's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. It was a lot of fun. All right, take care.